Hey there, folks. Travis Rudros Pfeiffer here for another Q&A session, which it's the 23rd of May on the day I'm recording this. Will probably go up tomorrow on the 24th, I'm guessing. I just got back from vacation. I was gone for a while. As with all my vacations, I got sick on the way back, so I am battling a cold right now. So if I look awful or sound awful, forgive me. I'll try to get through this, hopefully without too much hacking or stuffiness, but... Anyway, wanted to do a little question and answer, so let's jump right into it. And don't forget, if you're interested and you would like to participate or leave a question of your own, I'll leave a link down below for my Discord or Twitter, just any way you want to leave a message or you want to submit your question. There's a Q&A channel in the Discord, and you can, of course, leave it in a YouTube comment with the Q&A tag. So let's get right into it. Dragon Lord asks... Also, what do you think the other 4 colored cards will be like? I don't remember if they said there was a certain amount they were going to make. Like, did they say, hey, there's going to be so many, or, you know, there's going to be 5 or 6, or there's going to be 1 per set? But they didn't do one last set when they brought back multi-elements, so I don't know. I don't know how many they're going to do. What are they going to do? Well, obviously, you would hope... Ice Lightning is going to be on one of them. It would be interesting to see what they do with the different combinations. Like, what would an Ice, Earth, Lightning, Water look like? That'd be very interesting, because at least with Wall, they tried to give him text from every element. I think he's a little fire heavy, because First Strike and Haste are fire effects. You could argue Haste is wind. And then his Dull burn something for 5k is obviously fire. His only wind effect is the reactivating backups. Earth is obviously Brave and the big 10k. And then Water is he draws you a card. So he is pretty fire heavy on his effects. So maybe, I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just what they felt like he should be designed like. So again, what if you have one that's, like I mentioned earlier, Ice, Earth, Lightning, Wind? What if there's always one dominant element, right? So what if it's predominantly an Ice card with Ice effects, and the other 4 are just kind of there to support it? That'd be kind of interesting, depending on how they do it. I do have to say that Warrior of Light, and I'm hoping to have my midpoint meta review come out pretty soon, probably once I'm feeling a little better. And I'll mention Warrior of Light because I honestly think that card's a little overtuned. I think he's a little too strong, and I'll get more into that there. But so I guess it just kind of depends on how you want to do it. But that would be interesting design-wise to see. It has 4 elements, but instead of equal parts every element, which they've done with some of the multi-elements, especially some of the commons, the lower stuff, you'll see 2 enter the field effects, or when it enters the field, pick one of these 2 effects. Here's the Ice effect, here's the Lightning effect, here's the Water effect, here's the Earth effect, etc. So it would be interesting to the idea that, well, there's 4, you still got to pay with 4, but it is predominantly focused on one element. That would be my guess. Yeah, that's my answer. Brandon Wyke asks the first question, how was your vacation when you come back? Thank you for asking, Brandon. Very kind of you. It was good. I went on an Alaskan cruise, first cruise I've ever been on in my life. So I flew to Seattle, saw an old friend out there, and then we left from Seattle. It was a 7-day venture. Got to see Glacier Bay National Park and Juneau, Alaska, Ketchikan, Skagway, Victoria, Canada, which was such a cool city. Unfortunately, we had the least amount of time there. But no, it was good. It was a good experience, my first cruise experience. They did this kind of mock version of The Voice on the ship, and you could like just go up and audition. And I got to the finals. I was one of the finalists for it. For my audition, I did New York State of Mind by Billy Joel, and I got the most votes. Like, everybody voted for me, which was really cool. I had this Asian man come up to me, and he said, yeah, you killed it. Like, I 100% voted for you. You were great. So that was a really neat feeling. And then the crowd ate up the final performance, too. I did Crocodile Rock by Elton John, which is really awesome. So, yeah, it was a good time. Thank you for asking. Alaska was very beautiful. Lots of mountains everywhere. Ghoul02 asks, what's the funniest thing you've seen happen in a game of Final Fantasy? It can be both video or the card game. Oh man, that's a good question. So the card game, I wouldn't say funniest. Like, it's funny. Ghoul tends to think things in the game are funnier than I do. I don't know if I ever really thought it was funny, but a memorable moment, or it was definitely amusing. It was definitely like, wow, did that just kind of happen thing? And there's 2 I can think of from the card game, because the video games themselves, I've chuckled at like character beats before. I've chuckled at character mode. I don't think I've ever outright like had a gut buster in a Final Fantasy game. I can't think of it. So we'll go with the card game for now. So there's 2 instances that come to mind. This is way back playing in Opus 10, Opus 9, and both of them happened at the Collector's Store. And one of them was my friend Steven taking on my friend Steve. And Steve was going in for lethal damage. And Steven was on damage 5, so Steve was going in. He had to hit him once to damage 6, then one more and he wins. And the only thing that can stop him is, can you guess what? It's an EX burst, right? But more particularly, not just he was playing Earth something, so there was only one burst in the entire deck that was going to stop him. So Steve attacks in, trying to go for lethal. Other Steven takes the top card, flips it over. It's Opus 7 Legend Noctis, which only on damage 6 as an EX burst will break any forward on the board. So he flips that over, looks at it, and just looks at the one forward left to attack, says, break it. The other Steve just said, fuck you, dude. I understood that sentiment. At that same store, not that same night, this one, it wasn't funny because I was on the receiving end of it, but it was just like, it's just like, are you serious? Did that really work out? So I think this was Opus 9. I was playing pure mono ice discard, and my friend Max was playing mono lightning. He loved mono lightning. Dude played mono lightning all the time. He had exactly 4 backups on the field, exactly 4, and I had just dumped his hand with Opus 7 Sephiroth. Came in, pulled 2, and I specialed. So I got 4 cards out of his hand. He has, and it cost me a lot too, but again, he's right where I want him to be, and discard was a lot stronger back then. So he has nothing in hand, an empty board, no forwards. He literally just has 4 backups. So goes to his turn. He untaps his 4 backups, draws 2 cards, and immediately puts down Opus 2 Al Cid and Opus 1 Onion Knight. And if you don't know what that does, Al Cid chooses an active forward. You get to play another forward of cost 3 or less for free, and then it hits that active forward for 6,000 damage. And then the Onion Knight sees a forward that's taken damage, and it deals it 5,000 damage. So it basically does 11,000 damage to an active forward. And it's a very classic combo. At least it was back in the day. You won't see it anymore. But for him to top deck both of those cards in sequence and again, it was on the exact amount of backups to play for. When he did it, I just kind of stared at him just like, I think I did laugh a little. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? You just drew the 2 perfect cards to completely answer this. Of course, he went on to win because it instant counter and punish for what I did. I can kind of laugh about it now, but I remember the time that might have been one of the few times I actually didn't feel angry as much as he had, just very amused, just like, what are you talking about? Like, how does that happen? What are the odds of that? Oh my goodness. Pandas asks, did you play Final Fantasy 14? If so, what race do you mainly play and what's your favorite job? Great question, Pandas. Yes, I started playing during Realm Reborn. I want to say Realm Reborn came out in August of 2013, and I think me and my 2 buddies jumped on it in January of 2014. So a couple months, was that 5-6 months or whatever after it came out. And I played consistently ever since. So I played Realm Reborn through Heaven's Word, beat Heaven's Word, and then once I beat Heaven's Word, like I kind of just got burnt out on it. So I took a break, came back and closer to the end of the Heaven's Word expansions, played through Stormblood, same thing, beat the main Stormblood scenario, kind of burnt out a little bit, took a break, and then same thing with Shadowbringers and Endwalker. Every time I finished the big expansion, I got burned out. I did get into raiding later in the Stormblood and the Stormblood expansion, so I played more consistently then. I have one character. I have one character on the entire game. Rudros Caliphus. He is a Lalafell. I've just never felt the need to switch my appearance. I like the way he looks, and I'm just that kind of a person. Like, I find something I like, I'm like, yeah, I'll just stick with this. Very much if it's not broken, don't fix it, so I'm happy with him. And my favorite job was White Mage. If I play any kind of video game with magic, I'm always either a magician, a mage, sorcerer, someone who can use magic, and more specifically, if I'm able to, I'm a healer. I will always be healer first. That's something in my bones that I enjoy healing. So white mage was a no-brainer for me. I was tempted towards black mage because it did seem really fun, and it is a really fun class. But primarily, white mage was my favorite job. That being said, I think healing has become miserable in that game. Again, I could do high-end raid stuff, so I was a pretty good player. I have a screenshot somewhere where I was in like the top 5 percentile of healers for the Stormblood raids, I think it was, or the end raids, whatever it was. But it was more complex back then, and they've just dumbed it down and dumbed it down and dumbed it down. I mean, gosh, I used to have Arrow 2, Arrow 3, Protect, Stone Skin, all these things. They took all that away. Now you get a single dot, which I think is called like Dia right now, and Glare. So you spam Glare for 30 seconds, and then you hit Dia. So it's insanely boring. I don't like healing so much so, and again, I'm a white mage at heart. I've got a shirt that says like White Mage Academy. I love that job so much. And that was even before 14. It's just, it's always been a job I've loved in Final Fantasy because it's primarily associated with healing. But it's so boring and dumbed down. I actually switched to Red Mage for Endwalker because I couldn't bear to heal anymore. I just found it so tedious and so monotonous. So currently Red Mage is my main job. And I do really like the Red Mage combo in that game. I like when I don't remember what the move is, Korakor, when you like chain them, you pull yourself in, you do your sword combo, you backflip out of the way, you summon the flare and all that other stuff. Like Red Mage does feel pretty good to play. So overall, most of the jobs are good, especially if you're DPS. I don't tank as much. I used to like Paladin. I don't know, just kind of fell out of it. But yeah, I don't currently play. I was pretty satisfied after Endwalker. I don't know if I'll go back or not. Maybe like there's a part of me that kind of misses it every once in a while. But I also don't have anyone to play with right now. I used to have a whole group, and a lot of them aren't playing anymore. So there's your answer. Copycat99 asks, how do you feel about Tier 0 metas where there is one best deck above everything else? Does the mirror being skillful and or exciting affect how you consider the format? That is a really good question, Copycat, and I will try to answer it as in-depthly as I'm able to. What I care about, what excites me, what I enjoy, is to play a match or to see a match that is back and forth, that is close. We just had the Materia Cup in Kansas, and I didn't watch day 1. I was still on my trip. But I did see day 2, other than like, I think I missed the first match. But every match on there was a stomp. It wasn't exciting at all. And some people debate it. No, they weren't stomps. It's like, well, it wasn't a stomp in the sense of FF13 aggro, I kill you in 3 turns. Not that kind of stomp. But like there was this match Sam Toole had on his Leo deck. He was in control that entire match. Yeah, it took a long time to end. They used up most of their time. But at no point was he threatened. You know, you'll have those matches where technically not much damage has been dealt, but the other person has such a board state, has such a card advantage that like it doesn't matter because they've clearly won. They've won 5 turns ago, and the game's just not ending for whatever reason, whether it's choice or, you know, it's just whatever's happening. So I didn't find any of those matches interesting. You know, the final was 13. What does 13 do? Hope Vanille turn 1, and then his opponent, okay, Sildra, Galoof, Orin. Okay, that's it. Now it's over. You can't get over Galoof. Maybe you could with the Cindy, but he made a mistake and forgot Orin had to be chosen. So it's just, yeah, it wasn't a match. It wasn't interesting. So to me, the most interesting is when it's back and forth. Now, I will reference the last Worlds we saw 2019, where it was base 3 decks we predominantly saw on stream, which is World of Final Fantasy, Ranpair, and Windwater. And I remember that very first match with Alex against Robert, maybe it was Robert Phillips, and it was a Windwater mirror, and oh my god, it was boring. It was so boring to watch. So to answer your question directly, no, I don't find that exciting because it was insanely boring to me, and that was at the time when I still had my locals, and the local group was just being like, oh my god, like I don't think I can just sit here and watch Windwater face each other off the whole weekend. And not to say that it's not skillful or that the lines, there aren't a lot of lines. Obviously there are. It's a wind deck. And maybe those are fun to pilot or to play. But to watch it is miserable. And my other thing too with mirrors, probably, I guess my biggest is mirrors often boil down to, okay, well, who saw the key card at the right time? Which granted, I think a lot of Final Fantasy is like that nowadays. but mirrors especially, if you're doing, you know, a soiree mirror and one person has Shinju on turn 1 and you don't get to Shinju for 5 turns and it kind of fucks up your colors, of course they're going to do better. They saw the cards they needed. So yeah, in general, they're not much fun to watch. Again, maybe they are more fun to play. I don't play a ton of mirror matches just because of kind of the decks I play. Not a whole lot of people play the same decks I do. So, or at least that I've run into. But I think you and I actually I think one week in RVA, you and I played Loop against each other. It was after like re-raise, and I was like, I'll just play the Loop. Why not? No one else is going to be playing. I think it was you who was also playing Loop. And I don't know how you felt, but I was just miserable. Because again, it's just like, okay, who won? Who gets to go first? Who won the die roll? Okay, already that's not interesting. Like, cool, you've got the advantage because you went first. Same with like Magic. I love Magic the Gathering, but that's probably one of my biggest complaints in that game is it often just feels like, hey, you went first, you win the game. And Final Fantasy, I think, has gotten a lot worse about that, too. Going second used to be way better back in the day. But yeah, it was just a miserable match because, okay, well, who's going to get to it first kind of thing. So, yeah, not fun to watch at all. Haven't had enough playing to know for sure, but I know that one, the Loop, was in particular quite miserable. Katsumoto asks, will Cat 8 and Cat 9 ever be good? I didn't realize there's so many cats in this game. Wow, we're already up to 9 cats? No, just kidding. I know you're talking about the categories. Will they ever be good? Well, some people would argue Cat 8 is good right now. Category 8. Probably the what they call, I guess, the suicide aggro version. With Cypher and Ishtola, and you take all this self-damage, and you can haste stuff out and kill them. So you could argue that. I know, like, Richie Alvian took it in the Australia Cup, and he made top cut with it. So if you base it off of that one tournament, you could argue, well, it was able to make top cut, so that means it must be good, right? As far as 9 goes, I used to play, back in Opus 10, there was a really fun Category 9 deck. It was Fire, Water, and you had this VV that the more 9 characters you had, the more damage he could do. And I think if you got up to 7 total, you could like shoot something for 10,000 when he entered. He was only a 1 cost. Really love that card. Unfortunately, with a lot of these categories, they don't push the category as a whole. Again, if you look at the 8 stuff, what do they push? Squall, Renoa, Laguna, maybe Cypher. Category 9, well, you bet your butt Zidane's getting support. Vivi will get cards. Where's our good Steiner card? Well, we do not have a Steiner card that's worth playing. It's been an Amaranth. Oh my gosh. His Opus 8 card was just miserable. It was bad back then. He's dying for a card. Can we get a Freya that's tied to the 9 crew? I would love to make a deck with all of the 9 characters to feel like I'm playing that game. That legit, here is Steiner, Garnet, Vivi, Quina, Freya, Amaranth, Aiko, and not to have them be always tied to, well, Aiko does her summoner things. Well, Garnet kind of tends to do. Make a set that works together. No, will they ever do that? Unless something changes? No, I don't think they will. Because they seem more interested in just, well, let's just make good Zidanes, and then the others will get a card here and there. Steiner cards always have to suck for some reason. So, yeah, I would love to be wrong. Hope I'm wrong, but again, unless something changes with their attitude or their design, I don't see why they would do that. I think they're just you're going to keep getting the main characters pushed. Like, oh my gosh, 8. 8 had what? 6 main party members, right? Squall, Zell, Quistis, Selfie, Renoa, Irvine. Give me cards that work with that. There was that really neat Renoa back in Opus 9 where it was like every time an 8 character forward entered, you could freeze something on the field. Cool. And then they didn't give it any other 8s. Guess what it was supported with? Squall and Laguna. Oh boy. Like, come on. And the Quistis. Put them in the colors that work. You've got the Sid Kramer now. I don't know. I would love to see more category tribal synergy for that. Yeah, give me a set of each one that is, the purpose is to play them in a deck together. Wishful thinking. Kirjan asks, do you think any banned cards could be safely unbanned now? Okay, so currently in standard format, we have 10 banned cards. Let me see if I can flip this to dark mode. There we go. It's a little easier on the eyes. Riku, Guido, Dadaluma, Gesper, Thaumaturge, Mion, Doga, Mashri, Stern Leonis. And Sophie's not technically banned, but she is restricted. So could any of these be unbanned? I have a very blanket answer for you, actually. Yes, I think you can unban everything on here. Why? Because I think the design around bans it doesn't make much sense to me. So let's look at Riku, right? Why is this card banned? Because it's too easy to mill your opponent out. And surely nowadays, Matisky, if you're listening, give me the answer for this. But surely there is an infinite loop if this card still existed, right? Surely there is an infinite loop where you can just bloop, 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 and just mill your opponent out in one turn with Riku. If not in a single turn, in very few turns, you could mill so many cards. Okay, guess what? We also have an infinite mill loop that's existed since Opus 16. And it's gotten even easier in Opus 17. Check out Shikati's channel, Christopher Matisky. He's done whole videos on it. So, so in my opinion, why is that okay? They haven't banned that loop, and it's not hard to do. It really isn't. I couldn't tell you why more people aren't playing it. Chris did it with Chris. I was testing with Chris some nights ago, and he did it to me, I think, in 6 turns. It's not that insane. It's not some insane last-ditch effort you have to pull off. So if that's okay, why isn't Riku okay? Would that be stupid to get milled to death infinitely on turn 4? It would be. Why? It's not any more stupid than the one that exists. Same with Guido. Guido, this one is honestly the goofiest one because this card is terrible, and it was terrible when it came out. And it's only because of Barrel Eye that there is a specific combination with it that let you perma-wipe a board. But again, it only wiped the board if you, if you broke the Guido or killed the Barrel Eye before you committed anything. Who cared? Who cares? It doesn't actually, it didn't make anything, what's it called? What am I trying to say? And then you wouldn't lose anything because you didn't have anything on board. Again, was that cool or was that good design that you could just infinitely wipe any amount of forwards on your opponent's board in a single turn? No, it's not. But I don't really see how that's any different than any of the other goofy, uninteractive design we have in the game. I don't see, if Ice Wind, same thing because of Barrel Eye, is supposed to be a late game setup deck, and it can lock you out and beat you on turn 3. FF13 can run you over and kill you on turn 2, turn 3 before you've even done anything. That's all allowed. I don't see how is that any less degenerate than this stuff. Dadaluma especially, like, he's a pain in the ass to deal with, but it's, more ways to deal with him probably now than there ever were. Gesper and Thaumaturge, completely unfun, right? To have the turbo discard. Okay. I mean, these are kind of the only two I could maybe see an argument for. Maybe. I don't know, though. Yeah, I don't know about them. Mione, again, yeah, was silly, but Chocobo still exists and kind of does a similar thing. And just, I don't see why she's so much worse than, but again, Chocobo and Sildra and these cards are fine. Doga, I thought never should have been banned. I thought the whole issue with that deck was Sophie, and limiting her already hurt it hugely. Again, so Sophie, the big Sophie turn back in the Doga day was turn 1 Doga, draw 3 Ursula into Sophie. You've got 3 forwards on the board, you deal them a point of damage, you draw a card, and they haven't even taken a turn. It was insane. It was absolutely stupid. Okay, but again, 13 can kill you super quick too. Yeah, it doesn't refill your hand as much, but same with Moshri and Stern Leonis, and I think these cards are super duper stupid, and I hate these cards, and I'm glad they're gone. But the game also has a ton of stupid stuff where Avalanche can just explode onto the board in turn 1. You don't even see that anymore. That, again, a Luso player can literally, with no backups, cast Luso 6 or 7 times on turn 1 or 2. If all that exists, I don't really see why any of this stuff is any worse. I really don't. Again, Sky Pirates, it's miserable if you're trying to play anything fair, targeting Vaughn and Balthier, and they just pump and avoid and just uninteractable forever. Or you're trying to clear a board, and Matametal just says, yeah, I block everything. So, no, a lot of people out there might say, I don't think that stuff's on the same level, and that's fine. You're welcome to feel that way, but for me, again, I don't see how any of this stuff is less I don't see why any of this is so much worse than anything else that's terrorizing the game right now. It's all just power creep, and it's all just obnoxious, and it just gets more and more obnoxious. Again, Stern and Mashri are so universal for summons and forwards. Maybe they are just that ridiculous. And I mean, the dredge effects clearly don't work well in a game where you can purposely discard your hands. But yeah, for me, again, there's just so much silly stuff. EX Burst can completely flip a game and can give it to the person who didn't earn it, who didn't win the game, but the game just handed it to them. If that's allowed, why isn't any of this stuff? And they're so hesitant with the bans anyway, too. It's just like, yeah, so I wouldn't personally care, but I'm also not really playing anymore, too, so I wouldn't have to deal with the quote-unquote consequences. But, yeah, I wouldn't care if you unbanned all this. Firewolf / the Burger Man asks, if you could add one keyword or mechanic to Final Fantasy TCG, what would it do, and why do you think it would help the game? So, mechanic, I'm going to kind of go in reverse order. So, mechanic, I would add the most obvious one in existence, which is that there needs to be something that shuts off activation and wind. It is insane that there are cards that counter every other element or type, and there isn't a single thing printed that does that. There are cards that say can't receive damage or damage gets reduced, that counters fire. There are cards that say can't become dull, that counters ice. Or that there's even a card that if you discard it from your hand, their opponent makes you discard it, you get to take it back at the end of the turn at Argy. There are in Earth, also cards that say can't become dull. There's power reduction, which messes with Earth's big power stuff. You can dull, which kind of counters Earth stuff being brave. There's ways to get around can't be broken, which is kind of an Earth effect. So you can tighten, that can't be broken this turn. All right, well, this effect doesn't break, so it deals with it. Lightning, there's cards that, can take away keywords and cannot outright be broken, right? You've got these Odins outright break, and there's cards that say can't be broken by effects like that. If you have to deal me damage, you can't just break me outright. Same with water. There's stuff that we can mess with your hand. We can increase our power to counter your power reduction. There's cards that say cannot be bounced. Not many good ones. And again, there's a lot of bad cards in all these examples, but they do exist. And there is nothing that says the characters, or specifically the backups your opponent controls, cannot activate outside the active phase. That's insanity. Now, supposedly, I always hear this, well, there was a card in Chapters that did that and it killed the element. Okay, that's not an excuse. Chapters was how many years ago? When did this game come out? 2017? 2018? I think it was 2017. That's 6 years ago. And Chapters was before that. Okay, you can't say, well, this thing 6 years ago didn't work. Okay, so do it differently then. If you know that didn't work, then you should have all the ideas. Okay, we know what didn't work. Let's make a version that does work. I'm not saying kill wind. Believe it or not, I wouldn't want wind to die. I think every element and every strategy should be viable. But the fact that you can't even counter it, that you can't do anything while your opponent sits there and plays solitaire for 10 minutes, that you can't have a backup that just says, nope, you don't get to do that. That doesn't make any sense. And especially because wind already has so much, even if it was a backup. Let's say it's a 2-cost backup in ice. That fits the theme, right? That says your opponent's characters cannot activate outside the active phase. Guess what wind starts teching in? Ninja. Or what was the other one? I always forget the other. There's one that does the exact same thing, Ninja Archer, I think it is. That can just break that backup. But at least they'd have to tech it in and they'd have to see it. There's something you can do. So mechanically, in the wind will always be the best late game deck, late game, as long as there's literally nothing to counter that. And it doesn't make any sense when there are counters in other elements. So mechanically, that's what needs to be added. Keyword, I would love to see something equivalent to Trample in Magic the Gathering. For those of you who don't know what Trample is if you have a 3/3 body and I have a 4/4 body with Trample and they fight, normally like an FF, 2 forwards fight, they deal their damage, Trample says, hey, I'm going to deal the first 3 to you because it's what I need to kill this 3/3, and then that remaining 1 goes past it and it hits the player directly. It's a cool mechanic, and I think Earth would be a great place for something like that. Maybe even Lightning. Maybe that could be a Lightning thing. Because one of the issues I have with FF, especially compared to Magic, is that body size tends to not matter as much in this game. Why? Because if you have a 10,000 power forward, like Warrior of Light, Neo X Death, Braska's Final Aeon, or let's say you've got something that gets pumped up and you've pumped it to some obscene value. You've got an 18,000 power Sophie. When she hits you, she deals you 1 point of damage. If they have a 1,000 power body, they can block the Sophie and it's just blocked. So that would make sense for Earth. Give me a kind of a green feeling in Magic. Give me a big stompy thing. Hey, if there's a power difference between, if there's a 5,000 gap in power, then even if you block this card, I still deal you a point of damage. That would be neat. So you could have these big stompy guys that, yeah, he's just a big 12k body, but he doesn't do anything else. But it means if you block him with a 7k or less, he still hits you for damage. That would be cool. Like, yeah, so something, I don't know, again, how they would word it. And obviously it's a little different in this game because you take a single point of damage versus in Magic where you have actual life points, which can get subtracted, added based on a creature's power. But it would give combat, I think, more relevance. That now it's not just, Porum from Opus 9 is such a great chump blocker because it doesn't matter that it has 2,000 power. It blocks anything, and then it gets you your summon back. Imagine now if that Porum, you can block it and get your summon back, but this is my big trample guy. Like, he's still going to hit you for damage, so it's not going to keep you alive the way you think it is. So that would be my choice. Nikolai W6 asks, I got one then, if we're going to continue this. Why do you not support this game, Square Enix and Hobby Japan? Because other games are literally stealing your space. Furthermore, why do you continue to do things that bottom out the market? That is not supporting the game even for casual players. In actuality, it has chased away many players, supporters, and also any top-end collectors of this game. Are you now just determined to cash cow and destroy the game like you did with Chapters in Japan? So, let's do a little behavior lesson for companies. And of course, I have no insight into this company. We don't hear anything from them, but this will just be what I guess. So one of my favorite human behavior psychologies is what I call Behavior 101, which is you reward the behavior you want to see and you discourage the behavior you don't want to see. Think of a dog. You don't give a dog a treat if they go to the bathroom on your carpet. Not unless you want them to keep doing that, because now, I get rewarded when I do that. No, you punish them or discipline them or whatever your appropriate form of that takes, and you give them a treat when they do something well. When they go to the bathroom outside, or they jump your hoops or hurdles, or whatever it is you have. Same with children, right? A kid, if you're raising a child, you don't reward them and give them a toy if they do something wrong, if they hit another kid or they draw on the walls or whatever. If you do, you're going to encourage them to keep doing that behavior. And normally, companies should work the same way, right? The only power you have as a customer is your wallet, is to say, I will or will not buy your product. So if a company says, I'm going to put out product X, and you say, I like product X, more of that, and you give them your money. And they should get your money because that shows them, hey, I'm willing to buy this. I want you to keep making it. I like product X. If they make product Y and you hate product Y, you don't buy it. You have to have the willpower to not buy it and say, that's not going to cut it. I don't want product Y. So the company knows, okay, product Y isn't going to work. Let's try product Z. Now, with Square Enix and the trading card game in particular, I do know that the card game basically doesn't matter to them financially, unless something has drastically changed from the last information I was given. It just doesn't matter to them. Like, it's maybe 1% of their overall profits as a company. They're a video game company first. Think of all the mobile and gacha games and FF14 and even just their mainline titles. Like, so because of that, the success of the FFTCG, I don't think matters to Square Enix, which as a customer is a real problem, right? If you can't vote with your wallet to influence them, then you have zero power over them. And let's be honest, we have very little power over these companies as is, but your wallet is kind of your only voice. But if they don't care if it fails, then it doesn't matter. They have to be able to be influenced and affected by the fact that, hey, people aren't buying these sets of cards, they don't like them, or they're not buying this anniversary set or whatever it is. But if they don't care about it, if it's not part of their actual profit, if they don't need it to succeed, then the sad truth is, just as a consumer, you do not have influence or power over what they can do. So, and right there, any other problem you can think of is going to stem from that fact, that they don't care whether it succeeds or not. You know, some people I've heard make the joke, like, does the company even know they have a trading card game? That I don't know. You know, maybe, hopefully they do, but maybe not. But it's not important. You know, this is going to sound callous, but I can also see why. If I'm running a big company and 99% of my profits come from, you know, product A, I probably don't really care that product B fans are unhappy when it's 1% of the company. And of course, I would like to think I'm benevolent and would try to please everybody, but from a cold hard business perspective, yeah, but does that make much sense? Who cares what 1% is? I've got 99% over here. That's what I've got to worry about. So I do feel your pain. I understand your frustration. I'm sure every player has felt it to one degree or another. So yeah, unfortunate, but I think that is the truth of the matter, is that I just don't think we as players have much influence over what they do, if any at all. And I honestly don't think it's any at all. So I'm not saying this to be mean or to be a jerk. I shouldn't even have to caveat that. But that's just the truth of the matter, is it's a product. And you're either going to have to buy it and enjoy it for what it is or not, because I just don't think we have much power over what they do. And again, if you can't make them listen to you with your wallet, then nothing else matters, right? It's that cold hard business of it. So I hope that kind of answered your question. Sorry if that was too long and rambly, but yeah. All right, that was all the questions for this week. Thanks for bearing with me while I got through that, and we'll see you. I'm not sure when next week. Try to get more on a regular schedule. Hopefully I start feeling better, and hopefully that midpoint meta review will be out, if not by the end of this week. Again, I might wait until I feel a bit better, but I definitely have some cards I want to give thoughts on and all that. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Great questions. Till next time, take care.